The cruise ship glided smoothly over the dark ocean, its lights casting a warm glow against the inky night sky. The twins, Emma and Ethan, stood side by side on the upper deck, their laughter blending with the gentle sound of the waves. It was their first night aboard the grand vessel, and the excitement was electric. Both teenagers, adventurous and curious, were eager to explore every corner of the ship. Around them, passengers mingled, enjoying music and drinks, but the twins had a world of their own. They leaned over the railing, watching the water shimmer beneath the moonlight, pointing out the occasional splash of a distant fish. Suddenly, Emma nudged Ethan, urging him to follow her towards the quieter promenade deck where fewer people wandered. The twins slipped away from the crowded main areas, their footsteps echoing softly on the polished wooden floor. As they moved deeper into the ship's labyrinthine corridors, their jovial chatter faded into the background hum of the vessel's engines. They stopped at a narrow hallway near the crew quarters, where the lights flickered slightly, casting elongated shadows. Emma glanced around nervously but shook off the unease with a forced smile. They decided to explore a little further, intrigued by a faint light coming from an open door at the end of the hall. They crept closer, peering inside to find a storage room cluttered with crates and equipment. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from the opposite side of the ship, startling them. The twins exchanged worried looks and decided to head back, but as they turned, a figure darted past them, too quick to identify, before vanishing down a side corridor. Emma reached out to grab Ethan's arm, but he was already gone, slipping out of sight. Panic surged through her as she called his name, her voice trembling. She ran through the corridors, heart pounding, searching frantically for her brother. Crew members nearby heard her cries and rushed over, but by then Ethan was nowhere to be found. The captain was informed immediately, and a shipwide alert was issued. Passengers were urged to remain calm while staff conducted a thorough search of every deck, cabin, and hidden nook. Security cameras were reviewed, but inexplicably, the footage showed no sign of the twins leaving the deck or entering any restricted areas. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Hours passed with no trace. The sea was calm, but the atmosphere on board was tense and heavy with dread. Family members and friends gathered in the ship's lounge, clinging to hope but fearing the worst. The mystery deepened as the ship continued toward its next port, the unanswered question hanging over everyone like a dark cloud. Where had the twins gone, and what had happened to them in the dead of night? Days after the twins' sudden disappearance, the atmosphere had shifted from frantic urgency to grim determination. At the Coastal Investigation Headquarters, officers gathered around tables cluttered with maps, photos, and statements. Detectives interviewed crew members, passengers, and anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual during the night. Each recounting was met with frustration. No one had a clear memory of anything out of the ordinary. The ship's security personnel cooperated fully, providing access to all surveillance footage, but the recordings only deepened the mystery. Cameras captured the twins walking along the deck moments before they vanished, but from that point onward, there was no footage showing where they went. Several cameras along corridors had inexplicable gaps or distortions at crucial times, as if the tapes had been tampered with or malfunctioned right when the twins disappeared. The ship's captain and senior staff were questioned thoroughly. They insisted that the ship was secure and that no one could have left or entered unnoticed. Yet, the twins were nowhere to be found, and the idea that they had fallen overboard seemed unlikely. No distress signals or sightings were reported. The crew speculated about many possibilities: a secret passage, an accidental fall into a hidden compartment, or even foul play. However, no physical evidence supported any theory. Meanwhile, the twins' parents were brought onto the ship for interviews and to search the cabins. They clung to hope, refusing to accept the worst, but the silence was deafening. Investigators coordinated with coast guards and maritime authorities to search the surrounding waters, but after days, the search area was fruitless. Weather conditions had been calm, and the likelihood of surviving in the open sea for so long was slim. Media outlets had picked up the story, flooding news channels with speculation and sensational headlines. The pressure on the investigators mounted as public interest grew. Every lead was chased down, every tip followed, but each trail ended in dead ends. The ship's crew became increasingly anxious, whispering about curses, conspiracies, and even paranormal possibilities. The ship's itinerary was altered, and future cruises cancelled amid the growing unease. Despite all efforts, the investigation was stalled. The twins' disappearance remained an enigma, an unsolved puzzle that haunted the authorities and the ship's passengers alike. Weeks turned into months, and the case grew colder, but for the families and investigators, the search for answers had only just begun. 10 months had passed since Emma and Ethan vanished without a trace from the cruise ship, and the world seemed to have moved on, except for the twins' desperate family and the small coastal town near the ocean's edge. The town's residents had grown accustomed to the occasional debris washing ashore after storms, but one morning, a local fisherman named Miguel noticed something unusual tangled in the seaweed and driftwood near the rocky shoreline. As he pulled closer, the shape of a suitcase emerged, old, battered, and covered in barnacles and salt stains, its leather cracked from months of exposure to the relentless sea. Miguel's heart raced as he recognized the suitcase's distinctive design. It looked oddly familiar from the descriptions he had heard on the news about the missing twins. He carefully dragged it up onto the sand, wary of what it might contain but compelled by a grim curiosity. Word quickly spread through the town, and within hours, police officers arrived to secure the area and take possession of the suitcase. News crews followed closely behind, turning the quiet beach into a frenzy of flashing cameras and urgent whispers. The suitcase was locked tight, its rusted metal clasp stubborn against every attempt to open it. Authorities brought it to the local precinct, where forensic experts began their painstaking work. They documented every inch of the case, noting the scratches and salt deposits as silent witnesses to its journey. Initial scans revealed the presence of items inside, but what they were remained a mystery until the lock could be carefully picked or forced open without damaging the contents. Meanwhile, the discovery reignited the search for the twins. Questions flooded back. How had the suitcase traveled so far and for so long? Was it a sign of where the twins had been? Could it hold clues that might finally unravel the mystery? Theories circulated among the community and investigators alike, some hopeful, others grim. Could the suitcase have floated all this time, a silent vessel carrying secrets across the vast ocean currents? Or was it planted deliberately, a haunting message from someone who knew more than they had revealed? As the experts prepared to open the suitcase, tensions ran high. The long-dormant case stirred emotions in everyone connected to the twins. Their parents clung to hope and fear in equal measure, while the investigators braced for whatever truth might emerge from within that battered, salt-crusted case. The ocean had given up one of its secrets, but whether it was a key to salvation or a grim revelation remained to be seen. In the sterile, dimly lit evidence room, the battered suitcase rested on a stainless steel table, its surface scarred by months of ocean wear and tear. Forensic experts circled cautiously, their gloved hands ready to carefully pry it open without damaging the fragile contents inside. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the room felt charged with the weight of unspoken questions and fragile hopes. After several tense moments, a specialist managed to unlock the rusted clasp, and the lid creaked open, revealing a jumble of soggy clothing, a few personal items, and a small, water-damaged notebook. The clothing was immediately recognizable: Emma's favorite jacket, soaked and stained, and Ethan's baseball cap, the emblem barely visible through the salt-crusted fabric. The discovery sent a ripple of emotion through the team. These were unmistakably the twins' belongings, carried adrift on the ocean for nearly a year. Yet, their presence inside the suitcase only deepened the mystery. Why had these items been packed together and lost at sea? What had happened to Emma and Ethan in those final moments? The water-damaged notebook drew particular attention. The pages were fragile, the ink blurred in places but still legible. The investigators carefully turned each page, revealing hurried notes and sketches, some seemingly innocent observations about the cruise ship's layout and daily routines, others hinting at a growing unease. One passage mentioned a shadowy figure seen near the twins' cabin, and another described strange noises heard late at night. The notebook's last entry was a chilling, cryptic message: if anything happens, this is where the truth hides. As the forensic team documented the findings, the room grew silent except for the soft rustling of paper. The twins' parents were brought in, their faces pale and drawn, but their eyes fixed on the contents with a mix of sorrow and fragile hope. The items suggested that Emma and Ethan had been alive after their disappearance and had left behind clues, however faint, to what they had experienced. The investigators knew this was just the beginning. The suitcase was a key, a small piece of a much larger puzzle that promised answers but also raised haunting new questions. Who was the shadowy figure? What noises had the twins heard? And most importantly, where were Emma and Ethan now? The case, once dormant, was reignited with fresh urgency. The suitcase had surfaced from the depths not just as a relic, but as a message waiting to be decoded.